Meeks of New York.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the interest of time, I also would like to submit my statement
Without objection.
Thank you. First, let me state that I agree with the President's decision to come to Congress for the authorization for the use of U.S. military force to address the use of chemical weapons by Syrian forces. I think it was the appropriate decision, and both constitutionally and morally. And in making my determination on the use of force, I try to look at it through both a short and long-term interest in the security of America. That's my paramount focus. To that end, I believe that the use of chemical weapons by the Assad regime is indeed a flagrant violation of international norms against the use of such weapons, and this and other repugnant acts by Syrian forces are indeed against U.S. interests. But it's not only against U.S. interests, it's also against the international interests. So, if we act in a unilateral way, I have huge concerns that if there's a violation, we should act, especially militarily, in a multilateral way. We have regional countries, and I've been listening to the testimony here, but I don't know where NATO is. At least I've heard NATO, who basically said they've condemned it, but I don't hear them saying that they will step up with us militarily. I have not heard the Arab League step up with us. I've heard people condemn. In fact, Mr. Secretary, you said the world is watching what we are doing, but I've yet to hear some concrete things of what the world is doing. I'm fearful that they will isolate the United States, where we are only doing something unilaterally, while the world just sits back and watch when there's an international violation that took place. So, and you stated, Mr. Secretary, that it matters today that we are working as an international community to rid the world of its worst weapons, and I couldn't agree with you more. But I don't see or hear, unless there's another setting that I need to be in, where the world is stepping up and agreeing to act with us militarily, not just condemning the acts, but acting on that condemnation of the acts with us in a military fashion. And you stated during the hearing yesterday, Mr. Secretary, you indicated that while Russia has obstructed efforts to react to Assad's regime's use of chemical weapons, there are other ways that Russia may yet prove helpful. Would you please elaborate on what, if any, role Russia has or can play in bringing about a political solution in Syria? And how is Russia being engaged, given the Obama administration's correct assertion that there is no military solution to the crisis in Syria? And quickly, General Dempsey, I have serious concerns, as I've stated, about any action that is not broadly supported internationally. One of my concerns is the possibility of unintended consequences, including the prospects of prolonged military engagement. And in mid-August, you sent Representative Hagel a letter. You expressed that there are certainly actions that the U.S. could take short of tipping the balance of Syrian conflict that could impose a cost on them for abhorrent behavior. You also indicated that at least some of those options, and I quote, escalate and potentially further commit the United States to the conflict. It would not be militarily decisive, but it would commit us decisively to the conflict. Can you elaborate on what you meant when you stated that we could be decisively committed to the conflict? And if the U.S. Commits to a limited military strike in Syria, how do you minimize the possibility of prolonged commitment? And if the international support remains as limited as it seems now, are there risks of a longer engagement which are more pronounced? Go ahead, General.
You're going to have to take yours for the record, I predict. Congressman, in the time remaining, I think it's the focus and the purpose of the military action that will give us the best chance of limiting it in time and in commitment. In other words, my letter to Representative Engels talked about answering the question, what would it take to tip the scales in favor of the opposition? If we were to take military action ourselves to support the opposition, that's a long prospect. What we're talking about here is not that. The purpose is to deter and degrade for the specific purpose of chemical weapons. And I think it's the purpose that allows us to say with some confidence that that our intent is to limit it. Now, that's not to say that I discount the risk of escalation, which I can never discount, but I can tell you we've mitigated it to as low as possible.